On Easter weekend of 2015, my family and I all went to a modernized cabin in the Appalachian Mountains. This was our first time there, but our grandparents know the owners of that house, so we got to stay there for the weekend. Nothing happened for the first couple of days. But when we were dyeing eggs, my cousin, CJ, who was 6 at the time, came to us saying that her and her imaginary friend Anne wanted to dye eggs with us. My mom was just being my crazy mom, so she said that her and her imaginary friend can do something else and she can dye eggs when we have more space. CJ instantly replied, "Anne doesn't like that. She's angry with you." My sister's name is Anne, so we thought she was just trying to have fun with her friend Anne, but my sister was sitting right next to me, confused as I was. That night, I was sitting alone in my room. My cousin Dawson was with his family in his room, so I had the bunk to myself. I was playing on my DS late at night, but I felt the presence of being watched in the pitch black corner of the room. I was kind of paranoid, so I rightfully went downstairs to regroup and grab a glass of water. The door was shut right behind me after I left. I did not close it, and I was not facing it. I ran back in and grabbed my blanket, phone, and DS and ran straight to my parents' room. I asked my mom if I could sleep at the end of her bed tonight. I was 15, and she was concerned. She said, "Something's not right here. I feel it too. Just be quiet. Dad's trying to sleep." So I stayed quiet and continued playing my DS, trying to get my mind off what happened. About 20 minutes later, the rocking chair in the room starts slowly rocking. My mom looks at me and starts shaking my dad, yelling his name. And as she starts shaking him harder, I'm just watching the chair, completely afraid. The chair is shaking so violently, at this point it's about to topple over. My mom grabs her Bible off the nightstand and screams, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to stop." The chair froze, and we were all confused. We had no idea what just happened. The next day was Easter, and we had all of our activities going on as a family. Everyone believed us but my uncle, who still doesn't believe in any of that stuff. My grandparents asked the owners about the history of the house. The owner said it was built by a man named John and was married to this woman named Anna. John fought for the Confederacy in the Civil War, and Anna was a nurse of injured Confederate troops in the basement. She said that 40 people have died there, and after John passed away in the war, Anna hung herself in that room where my parents were sleeping in. To give a short introduction for context, I have an issue with my eyes that causes me to see very fine amount of static at all times. Dr. Google has given a lot of answers, and asking an actual doctor didn't get me very far. This will be important later. Other important information: the house this took place in was very small. Even when I was a young kid, it felt tight. It was a one-story house with a basement, unfinished, with old and thin wooden stairs. The living room was the biggest room, with a couch that faced away from me and my sister's shared bedroom. Now, like previously mentioned, the account I will share with you soon happened at night, and as time passed, I gave it little thought, as it seemed impossible. I mentioned one of my experiences to my family, and they mentioned their own strange sights in the house. That previously mentioned couch sometimes had feet that could be seen from behind the couch, though when you went to look, no one was there. Another time, my father was coming up the basement to yell at us for running on the stairs. He passed the main hallway and saw a woman with glasses and a red sweater staring back at him. His momentum had carried him past the entrance, and so he quickly stepped back to see who this intruder was, to yet again find no one there. I had other cases of feeling like someone was massaging my feet some nights, which I have to say is one of the most base primal terror I've ever felt in my life. A few other things: your usual skidding feet on the stairs only to find the kids in the room playing with Legos, whispers on rare occasions, and not much else past this. Now, having recently asked my family of their stories in more detail, it just makes me feel more unsure. So now I share my story with all of you. I had just gotten to bed. It was Easter night, and I was excited for the egg hunt tomorrow and couldn't sleep. My siblings had already fallen asleep, and I could hear my parents faintly in the basement working. The more I thought about sleep, the more I couldn't seem to reach it. It got late into the night, and I heard my parents go to bed. I had become thirsty, and at this point, I wanted to ask them for water before I fell asleep, so I got up. It was very dark, and my night vision was impaired slightly by the aforementioned static already, so I really took my time getting out of bed. Reaching the door, I gently pulled it open and felt the feeling creep into me that I wasn't alone anymore. The light to the basement kept the hallway in front of me lit, a straight shot to the living room, an orange yellow that only kept it bright enough for me to move. It felt like something was getting closer to me, though I heard nothing. Being a young child, I froze and squinted my eyes, hoping whatever it was didn't notice me. Nothing seemed to change, and standing in the open felt like more danger than standing still, so I opened my eyes and prepared to cower back into my bedroom when I noticed something I had never seen before or after in my life. The static seemed to be concentrated. The visual fuzz formed a mass in the dark. It floated, with no real distinguishing forms near me. Now I would assume it to be some sort of eye spot, or just something a little off in my brain. But it was something that nothing else had been. Consistent. I moved away from it, moving my head and my eyes to test that something was actually there. It didn't move with my vision. Even as I looked at it from the corner of my eye, it remained the same. The realization had fully set in that there was something indeed hovering in front of me in the dark. I couldn't tell you why, but I felt as if it were facing me, and as I looked at it longer, I felt my fear slip quite a bit. It then moved downwards toward the hallway and then stopped, as if a dog trying to lead me somewhere. I brought my hands together and interlocked them in front of my chest to self-soothe and followed it. I can still see it in my head. The dim hallway with the swirling mass of static, creepy on the surface, but for some reason not too scary at the time. We made our way through the living room to the kitchen when it stood next to the kitchen sink. I followed it and waited, watching it. I looked at the sink, then back to it. If it had let me there for water, then we were both out of luck, as I was still too small to reach the sink or the cups. I'm sure that feeling was written all over my face as it slowly floated back towards the hallway, assuming I'm right about its intention, or if it had any intentions at all. Turning myself to follow it back to my bedroom, very much deciding that water could wait till tomorrow morning, when I noticed something else new in the space. 2 figures were sitting on the couch, though as I couldn't see the front of the couch, I suppose they could have been there the whole time. They sat in the darkest part of the couch, as the basement light couldn't reach the seat. One of the figures was small, and the other seemed to be an adult, though looking back, I believe it could have been an elderly person by its posture. My fear returned and deepened as I saw these new things. I did not feel safe being in their line of sight. Unfortunately, I would have to walk near them again to return to my bedroom. I probably would have frozen then too, but I was desperate to stay close to the static mass as it moved on without me. I shuffled quickly back behind it, and felt a bit better once I was on the back end of the couch. I had made it nearly halfway past the couch when I heard something. I only paused a moment to let my ear try to pick up the sound. It was muttering. I don't remember this part that well. I didn't understand what the tone was, but it was clearly a very strong emotion. I began moving again, and the muttering sped up. I also didn't know in a conscious way what this meant, but I felt like a mouse staring a cat down and seeing it take its position to pounce. I shuffled fast, even past the static figure that was still making its way down the hallway, never taking my eyes off the top of the sides of the couch, waiting for something to peek around its edge and get a good look at me. At the time, I was certain a stranger's face would peek over and see me, and charge me down. I may have been too young to know exactly what death was, but I knew subconsciously like every animal does. Nothing did peek its head over or around. I just shuffled back to my room and walked through the door. The static mass did not make a move to enter, but once I had begun to close the door, it became softly drifting back down the hallway again. I went to bed and lay there for a few hours until exhaustion finally took me. I woke up the next morning with fuzzy memories, but otherwise, it was like it never happened. That's all. Generally a one-off experience that did not repeat in any way. I've given you the best account I have from my memory. I excluded anything I couldn't remember fully to avoid wasting time with what I couldn't be sure of. When I was 10, I went to my granddad's girlfriend's house for Easter dinner. For background, I have an older sister who's 13 and a younger brother who's 8. My grandfather's girlfriend, known as M, has 2 grandkids, a girl about my sister's age and a boy about my age. M had a husband who had died decades before I was born. My new cousins had watched ghost hunting videos, and I thought it would be fun if we looked for some while at M's house. So armed with a video camera and flashlights, we went into the basement. Because we were all so young, fear got to us immediately, and we continued our search into the light of a couple of hanging bulbs. For about half an hour, we wandered around a dim 50 by 50 basement, littered with paper bags and clear storage tubs, asking questions like, are we alone? Are there any spirits here? We didn't get any responses, so we were all ready to head up, when my elder cousin asked something along the lines of, if there was someone down here with us, could you do something with this paper bag? She points to a random paper bag, one of the many in the corner of the basement. Then only seconds later, my other cousin trips and knocks down a pile of dishware on the opposite side of the room over. Out of that pile rolls a sieve, and this sieve travels 30 feet rolling into a curve directly hitting the paper bag in question. This gives us the drive to continue. M's departed husband had been a handyman and made his daughter a dollhouse. It was this dollhouse that my younger cousin decided to play with. As he was playing with it, he accidentally lifted the roof off, exposing a nail and wood glue. He replaced it in a hurry after we all quietly scolded him. We continued on for a little while, but with no other evidence, we decided to go upstairs. We all sat in the living room watching the recording, with all the adults talking at the dinner table and in the kitchen. Of course, like all ghost videos, there was some random white orb that went left to right and back across the room, but we didn't put any real stock into it being more than a lens flare from dust. It wasn't until I got to the part where my cousin broke the dollhouse that we all got scared. Right as he lifted the roof off, there was a clear and loud, "Get out!" This wasn't something like off Ghost Adventures, where it could just be a door creaking or someone talking in another room. It was clear and vivid, and I still hear it to this day. We were all thoroughly spooked at this point, and ran to the adults to ask if any of them had yelled to get out. They said they didn't think so, and even if they had, no other voices were heard on that video besides the one in the basement, so I don't see why this one phrase could be the one that we heard. I still think about this occurrence a lot, and even ask my sister, who's now 22, if she remembers it, just to make sure I didn't make it up in a dream. I like to think that I'm a logical thinker, but nothing I can say or do has ever been able to convince me that this was just some weird coincidence. This happened around 20 to 25 years ago. I don't remember the exact year. I must have been around 10 to 13 years old, and my brother is 2 years older than me. When I was a kid, every year for the Easter school holidays, my family would go out camping on some land that my grandparents owned. The best thing about it was somewhere to ride our motorbikes. My older brother and I would often jump on our bikes and head off riding around the property together, racing and making up silly games, etc. One year, we were both out riding, but had gone separate ways. So at this time, I was on my own, with nobody else anywhere in sight. Suddenly, I heard a voice say my name. I heard it clearly over the two-stroke bike engine, and it didn't sound muffled through my helmet. It sounded more like it was being spoken directly into my ear, or as if I had a headphone or earbud in my ear. At first, I disregarded it. I thought it was some strange interaction of the exhaust sound, the ear cavity of the helmet, and the wind blowing across my helmet visor. Basically, some kind of auditory illusion. But I heard it again, and again. A woman's voice calmly saying my name as if trying to get my attention. It would occur when I was riding in one small area and nowhere else. I'd say the area was a radius of 50 meters to 75 meters. It was in an area we had to pass through to get to the camp on the motorcycle trails and back. The voice persisted for days, in the same spot, and it increased its vocabulary. It would say my name. It would sometimes say, "Come here," and it would sometimes say, "Come to me." It started to creep me out, and I would feel anxious when approaching the area where it could happen. After a few days of me not saying anything about it to anyone, I was out riding with my brother, and he signaled for me to stop and pulled up right in the middle of the area I had been hearing the voice. He turned his bike off and removed his helmet, so I did the same. Then we had a short conversation where he asked if I had been hearing anything weird, and if so, what. I told him I'd been hearing a voice. He went pale. I described the voice, and he said that it had matched what he was hearing. I asked what the voice had been saying to him, and he told me it would say his name and call for him to come to it. We rode back and told our parents. Our dad came out riding in the area with us. He didn't hear anything, and we didn't hear anything while he was there either. We kept hearing the voice for the next few days, always saying the same things. I remember this happening just the 1 year, but I brought it up with my brother recently, and he seems to think it also happened the same place the following year.